Two regular sessions.
Good morning, everyone. If we could, please, let's call this meeting to order. We're going to stand first and say Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. It is a beautiful April day. This morning, I was like, oh my goodness. So I'm just very thankful. I thought maybe we should have this meeting outside, but we're all inside. I'll try to keep it moving along. Could you do roll call, please, Jake?
You bet. Keisha Johnner,
Here.
Jim Mueller,
I'm here.
Steve McCombs.
Here,
I'll entertain a motion for today's agenda.
I'll make a motion we approve today's agenda.
I'll support that motion.
McCombs,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye. On to communications. Board, is there any communications, Jake, or anything on?
No, none
Yep.
from us.
Nothing? All right, moving on. This is the public comments portion. This is something that is not on the agenda below. These are topics that could become future placement on a future agenda. Is there any public comments? Do we have anything online? Seeing nothing? All right, moving on. Entertain a motion for today's consent agenda.
I move to approve today's consent agenda.
I'll second.
Mueller,
We lose connection.
Jim, are you there?
He's on mute.
For some reason, it didn't unmute for me.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
On to business. Item number 1 is the City of Knoxville, the Veterans District Land Use Plan. I'm going to turn this over to the City of Knoxville and whoever would like to present. Glenn, good morning.
Good morning, and it is a nice morning, and I'd really like to be brief, but we have a fair bit of ground to cover, so I'll try to
It's-
go quickly. In addition to myself, Mayor Hatch, our city manager, and our director of parks are here as well.
Great,
Um,
thank you.
I thought I'd briefly give you an update on some of the progress in the VA because you're not always picking up on everything that's happening. We have an offer in for additional 10 lots from Origin Development. They built 5, they're currently building another 5. And they're all spec houses, of course. So if that gets approved by council in their next meeting, we will have 30 of the 34 single-family lots sold in less than 2 years.
Wow.
Awesome, great.
That'll leave 4 individual lots that someone can buy a lot and hire their own builder, do a custom home. And of the 30 that we have sold or we have pending, 4 individuals have done that, and they've built houses that are bigger, more expensive, different than the workforce housing starter homes that we've been building. It's an incredible record for a town this size in the economic climate we've been in. So something is working there. Across the street on the south side of Pleasant, those 2 projects are underway. The Overland is about to break ground on their 48-unit affordable seniors apartment. And Hugerich has broken ground on their first phase, which is a 36-unit market rental apartment using workforce housing tax credits. They're applying for workforce credits for the second phase, which are 20 townhouses that will face Pleasant with the apartment building behind. So in that first 18-acre park subdivision that includes a 3-acre park and the water retention area, we'll have 30 some single family homes and 104 apartment buildings and townhouses by this time next year or the year after with the single family homes. In addition to that, we have Good news and bad news. The city had applied for one of the community project grants through Congressman woman Miller Meek's office, and we received a recommendation for 2.77 million of our $13 million cost on the public safety city hall building. Because that budget was not approved and because we were already delaying our start for the grant, we've had to walk away from that. But Miller Meek's office has asked us to make a new application. We were given the authorization yesterday, and we have until Friday to submit.
Wow,
But
that's a quick turnaround.
yeah, I had 2 weeks for the last. But we've already done costing on the sanitary lift station in the VA and the storm and sewer lines that would take us all the way to the edge of the laundry building. So it would run north of, the sanitary lift is south of Pleasant, beyond the gully on the west end, would run across north of Pleasant, hook up to where Willits would move north, go up to the east-west street that we're calling Constitution, run the front of the elementary school site and connect to the laundry building at that point.
Okay.
That's sanitary and storm with the lift station. Rough guess, the engineers are updating, it's about 2.4 million. And if we were lucky and got the grant, it would be a $1.8 million grant. So I'm knocking on wood. We don't have it guaranteed, but with any luck, Congress will approve a budget and our project will be in it.
It's very heartening to see what's going on there, Glenn, especially what we were dealt with when we first started all this project, you know.
Oh, good Lord, we were left with a mess. And you know, we've got 3 or 4 parties to this project, city, county, I say IEDA and the school district, and now private developers, and it's coming together. So. But that's the update on the district. As you know, that sanitary lift station and those lines are important. The only thing that can develop without them is Veterans Boulevard extension and the laundry building. But connecting the laundry building from the west is a good thing as well. So when I'd like to walk you through this, and I want to preface my remarks by saying this isn't a formal proposal. We're not asking for your endorsement.
Jim, I want to clarify what you just said. You're looking at connection to the laundry building from the west and Veterans Boulevard?
Well, we've got 100 acres of the VA where the drainage has to flow to the west. And it begins just behind Veterans Boulevard. The line from the laundry building through the middle of the park. And so we have to service that entire area, including the residential. So when you go to service the elementary school site, it's not hard to connect to the west end of the property because they're right next to each other. The other way, there are other ways to put sanitary and storm to the laundry building site, though. We can go through the east, or we can go up Veterans Boulevard, but ultimately it's a system.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that 100 acres, we can't develop without the lift station. And so when we want to move on to phase 2, if we're with luck, this lift station will make it easier to move on to the next phase. So one of the things that we were trying to sort out for the last year, switching gears, is how we deal with the eastern part of the Veterans District. And I'll just walk you through it briefly, but I want to emphasize this is not a formal proposal. We're not asking for your endorsement. We're trying to solve a puzzle. There are a lot of pieces to the puzzle, and if I can mix metaphors, there are a lot of moving parts. And so we're throwing it on the table for discussion. And if you're interested in trying to work our way through that puzzle, we'd like to do it with you.
Okay.
If not, we're going to find a plan B.
No, appreciate that.
So when you were taking possession of the VA lands, you hired Confluence to do a master plan. And so that's what we have on the board. And draw your attention to the eastern part. The VA does not include Young's Park, but if you look on that map, The red commercial area on 14 is the ball field in Youngs Park. And the purple area along the railway, which was designated for mixed use, is also part of Youngs Park. It's not on this map. The skate park, which is part of Youngs Park, is to the south of the ball field site, the red site. When the city received that land as a gift from the federal government, we agreed that that would be left as park and open space forever. And the only way that we could develop the purple or the red is if we can get their approval to transfer that dedication to a site of similar value. Okay. That site is 3.25 acres. And if we were to develop that, at the very least, we would have to transfer that equivalent value somewhere. So I would say next door, where some of the purple is roughly. We have appraisals done the federal government way for these transfers and dedications. It's called the Yellow Book appraisal. And 3.25 acres on 14 for commercial development is the equivalent of 3.5 acres next door on the county lands. The red commercial lands are actually worth more, but the way the feds do their appraisals, we have to treat the existing R2 zoning as a factor. As I think I've just discussed with you before, we actually had an offer from Aldi that we accepted in principle to sell the ball field for $420,000. And it was contingent on their head office approval. And it would be contingent on us being able to apply for the transfer of the dedication. So we would have to work something out with you. As we were beginning to work on that a year ago, Alti stepped back from their proposal and decided that they didn't want to build on that site in Knoxville now. And we think part of the reason why is that there is a process of applying for this transfer takes anywhere from 1.5 to 2 years. And their concerns were in terms of development, their development program were more immediate. Regardless of whether Aldi is interested 2 years from now, if we go down this path, I get calls every month from commercial developers who want to build in Knoxville, but they only want to build on 14. And somewhere between roughly the railway and Walmart is where they want to be. So this site is a valuable site if we can free it for development. I think we missed a couple of slides. Can you go back, Jake? There's a second and third slide.
I find it ironic we have to play by the Fed's rules to transfer that property when they dumped the whole VA project on us.
Irony is an understatement. It really is. Well, sorry. Yeah, the first couple. I can do this. Sorry, it's not up there. Next one. Very good. So just to go back to the background very quickly, it's 152 acres to develop it. We have a basic arrangement. The county acquired the land. They borrowed the money to do the demolition and remove the utilities, which were obsolete. 11 million spent to date, probably more now. The city committed to either facilitating the land development, working with private land developers, or acting as the land developer itself, which we were obliged to do the first time out because we couldn't find a land developer who wanted to take the risk working with half a TIF. They get their money back with borrowing costs, but it's a longer term investment. So we decided to proceed with that development and we invested $5.5 million. So that together we put in about 17 million with more to come. We then put together a 28E agreement, which you're familiar with, which confirms that. And if you go to the next one, please. It basically says we have a joint development committee that reviews projects and purchase offers. We've been doing that. Most of that work occurred last year. And we did in Joint Development Committee before, about a year ago, look at these moving parts in the east side. And we've had a couple of discussions with Keisha since then, but they were more informative than anything else. And if the Joint Committee is prepared to recommend a project, we go through a process of asking the county to transfer the land to the city, which is your preference. Usually that involves a subdivision, and then we approve the formal sale of the land to the buyer. The net proceeds from the sale of the land accrue to the county, and we share the TIF on a 50-50 basis. Your net proceeds and your 50% pay for your $11 million investment and borrowing costs. Our 50% is either used to pay back in phase one our investment, or if we're working with a private land developer in a phase 2 or 3, pays back their investment in the land development.
Is the TIF 10-year graduated or how?
No, it's a very different TIF. It's more like downtown Des Moines. It doesn't have a sunset clause. And we can do deals where people with their investment and borrowing costs are paid off completely. It'll just take a long period of time. Right? So there isn't a sunset on any TIF arrangements, and the TIF contract is with the city and the county, and then the city can do a development deal using their share of the TIF, and we did that with the 2 apartment buildings south of Pleasant. So we talked about this, but this is what we have to date. A fair bit of development, and perhaps we can move on. Now we'll get to that map that I was beginning to describe. Oh, we've jumped again. All right, the master plan. Yes, thank you. So what we have in this area, and I talked to Confluence after they prepared the plan, they said that the purple area, they didn't really know what to do with, quite frankly. They also did not know of this obligation for park space. I believe we told them at one point, but got lost in the shuffle. Their thinking was that if the laundry building could become a large, almost entertainment recreation complex, that there might be 20 years out demand for something like this mixed development. Now, we haven't had a mixed development here since the 1920s. And at this scale, we may never. It's almost an East Village kind of project. So we're all dubious on whether that will happen. What Confluence said to me, though, was that if we're expecting this to be the last area to be developed, we've got time to work it out. Our problem is that area might have other uses. So why don't we move on? Yes, thank you. When a year ago, we prepared a new land use plan, a new concept plan. It was approved by City Council, and we took it to the Board of Supervisors, and this was the land use plan that was officially proposed. And you can see this area that we're talking about east of Veterans Boulevard. We identified in gray as a future development area, and we basically said we have to figure out what we can do here, because we know that the way it was proposed in the master plan isn't going to work. And in that concept plan, if you go to the next slide, thank you. We also suggested an alternate land use plan, and I described it to you as being a concept, an idea in principle that we would have to work through. And Board of Supervisors was very interested in developing commercial development on 14. And you actually endorsed this in principle, but it's like the first of many steps. So let's not pretend that there's any commitment as yet to doing anything. And that's not a concept. That's just an expression of an idea. If we can go on. to the next, oh, if you could go back, I'm sorry, jumping ahead. We also tried to show the relationship between the Laundry Building site, Veterans Boulevard, the commercial on 14, and the multifamily site that would be just on the south end of that area that we're talking about. It's in brown in the middle. It's about an acre in size. I think it's quite capable of accommodating an apartment building with as many as 36 units, but could be 12, 14 townhouses as well. So there is a site that's fairly easy to service there. The commercial site on 14, while Aldi was proposing a 20,000 square foot grocery store. And you have about 25,000 square feet of space in the Laundry Building, and that's a 5-acre site. So those are the development pieces where we would expect to see taxes, and in some cases, property taxes to share, and in some cases, sales tax to share. Why don't we go on? We were developing over the last year a new servicing concept for the development concept for this area north of the existing development, basically between the Laundry Building and where we are now. And we decided to shift the orientation of the streets north-south. They'll face each other. They won't be facing the school and the Laundry Building. And so I'll just describe the pieces of this part. The green is what we've already developed. The yellow immediately to the west of it is another version of that. There are 34 lots that we can put in there, workforce housing, but they need the lift station. The blue is the easiest connection to the Laundry Building for access. And the orange are the subsequent blocks that we would develop over time. Of course, the school is right to the west of the laundry site. So if the elementary school comes, we'll have to not only build the lift station, but we'll have to do the north-south extension of Willits to the elementary school site. So if you see the long yellow line, that's what we're calling Independence Avenue. So,
And just so we have clarity, are you gonna keep the road back behind? We're looking at keeping the road, even though on the yellow on Willits that goes, I mean, obviously it gets cut off, but is it still gonna service back behind if the school was there and then to the laundry facility as it is currently?
it depends.
Okay.
The school district may not need it, but if the Laundry Building does, we'll repave it and make sure it's a credible route in. Much depends on the use. If we were having, say, a light manufacturing use, we'd probably want to run the trucks in the back.
Right, yeah.
But we're open to keeping it. We just haven't put it in an improvement plan so far.
Okay.
Now, where the blue and the yellow blocks are the lots there, they're 60 and 70 feet wide with garages allowed in the front. So they're more like a 1970s subdivision in terms of their size. So a step up from this starter home and a more traditional suburban format. So they'll sell for a little bit more. The houses will be a little bit bigger.
And you're saying the orange section?
The orange and the blue and
Yep,
any
okay.
housing on the blue.
Okay.
And part of what we're trying to do is do at least 3 different kinds of neighborhood. This neo-urban starter home workforce thing around the park, a larger lot, front drive access to the north, but still relatively small lots, and a grid system. When we go west of Willits Independence, we get into different terrain, and where single family goes there, we're probably into curvy streets to deal with the change in elevations and bigger lots. So we end up with 3 different kind of communities, 3 neighborhoods, let's put it that way. Okay, let's go on. Now, if we are to access the Laundry Building directly from Veterans Boulevard, it's about $1 million. To build the road, it's about 500 feet. Provide the water, the sanitary, the storm, curbs, etc. And that's a cost that would be borne by the city or its developer. Now, the lots that are created, whether there's 8 on the west side or 16 on both, And the laundry building site will probably increase in value. You know, I'm guessing the acre price of this land is about 30,000 and you're probably netting 20 some for the lots. So a fair increase in value and that'll accrue to the county. That's the deal. So we're fine with that. Let's move on. The commercial development on 14, as I said, is about 3.25 acres. I mentioned what's happening here. If we can get the amount of land to transfer the dedication, we can apply for that. I think it takes the federal government about 6 months to approve it, but there's a review period where all the native bands in Iowa can respond, and they don't have a deadline, so it can be 18 months or longer. But to do that, we have to have a commitment and conditional sale or agreement or something. They have to know we have the land transferred. We do update the appraisal. We carry on from there.
Okay.
Steve?
You have to have the agreement in writing.
In order for the feds to accept this transfer of not being a park anymore, we have to have an agreement with somebody that's going to purchase that property? Is that what you're saying?
Well, what basically happens is we make an application to transfer that 3.5 acres, the value of that 3.5 acres to another site that we will dedicate in perpetuity as park and open space.
Oh, okay. So we don't have to have a buyer for that property?
No,
Oh,
but-
okay.
sorry.
We just gotta we
The
gotta
county
make,
has to have a deal where we have access to this site. It's of this value. It's more than the
okay.
site that we're selling on 14. So we got to document that deal.
So I just want to make sure that everybody understands. So it was a USDA grant. Is that my understanding?
They
at one
give us the
point?
land and some money for the ball diamond.
Right. And so in turn, the commitment was, since it was this sort of agreement, you have to in turn find another, if you want to sell this location, you have to relocate this 3.25 to 3.5 acres
Yeah, it's
somewhere else.
an
be able to-
equivalent or greater value.
Yes, okay.
And it doesn't matter where that other replacement land is located. It can be frankly anywhere.
There's a bit of yes and no on it. They'll take a look at what we're proposing and make a judgment on that. The easiest thing to do is put it next door for various reasons. Because we've already got the facility there. At the very least, we could replace the ball diamond.
I recognize that that would be the easiest, but that's also probably some of the highest value retail or commercial property in the whole lot, not counting the stuff right on 14.
Yeah, I tend to disagree with you, Supervisor, but that's a conversation for another day, I think. One of the advantages of this site is the servicing's already there. We've got the washrooms, the maintenance, the utilities in place, the parking. We can make it a multi-age group because we've got the skate park and the children's playground. It's hard for us to do that somewhere else. And we have an obligation to the feds to find an equivalent value of park space to dedicate. But to our community, we have at the very least an obligation to replace what we're taking away. And this would be our best way of doing that.
So we just have to obligate to the space. It doesn't have to be a developed space.
No, it's the value of the land, but we would, in our application, be proposing what we have to do with it, and they'd be reviewing that. But that would be the city, not the county.
Yeah.
How long do you see that process taking? Any longer than that?
Oh, I'm retiring in June. And I think it'll take us a couple of months if you want to proceed through this process to work out a deal that would allow for that conditional agreement. The application then has to be made. So I'm guessing by the end of the summer, that application would be in. We have to work through the DNR. We don't make it directly ourselves. And they tell us anywhere from 12 to 24 months based on when the native bands respond. Now, as it turns out, the native bands looked at the entire VA. because that was part of the process. They said that they had no claim on it. But it doesn't mean that they're gonna get back to us quickly. So it's a long-term process, right? And development isn't gonna happen in this area in the next few years.
All right.
All right, so that's the commercial site. Why don't we move on? Thank you. I'm gonna point because I didn't mark it on this map. My own skills are rather limited. This is Liberty Lane and Veterans Boulevard. This is the area where the water retention is. This site is right along here. This is the new pathway.
Yep.
This is about a 1 acre site. There's a bit of a drainage.
Yep. Mhm.
Swale there. All we have to do is extend this road to that point, the cul-de-sac. And it's about 250 feet. That becomes a developable site. Now, we haven't costed that, but once again, that's a land development cost. It's not a county cost.
Okay, all right.
And anywhere from 14 to, I'll say, 36 apartments. Next site. This is the land that we haven't talked about, the stuff in the middle. A couple of things. You'll see the red lines on the south side that follow the pathway. We're not going to have to build all that. Just about 150 feet of it. We had drawn it in this way, thinking that it would be needed for fire access, and they're happy with a cul-de-sac. This is the land between Veterans Boulevard and the remainder of Young's Park, and it includes the Young's Park along the railway. We're going through a comprehensive plan process, likely to be approved next month. The main thing that we are hearing from our community is we need a sports complex. We need a place for youth baseball and soccer. And the estimate for that was 50 acres and $12 million. Now, worked in government long enough to know that ain't gonna happen anytime soon. Simplest way of putting it. And so we step back, especially when we're building the civic building. In a couple of years, we'll have some borrowing capacity, but not a lot. And anytime you stop spending on your capital needs, you have a backlog that you have to address. So we've looked at how could we make this happen here? And part of the reason is we already have some of Young's Park plus the 3.25, I'll call it 3.5 because of the appraisal differences, transfer to set up the commercial site on 14. We could do in this space 4 diamonds, 2 that are 210 feet, which are like Little League size, and 2 that are 230, and a half dozen youth soccer pitches of different sizes. The diamonds themselves are about $250,000 each, so it's about $1 million worth of city investment. The soccer pitchers, much less expensive. And then we would have to add some parking. We have 80 stalls or so, but we need some more. And we have a washroom, but we'd have to probably double its size, things of that nature. So it's about a $2 million cost.
I have a question. This area here, what's that being designated for? Because,
Soccer, I'm assuming.
well, because here the next agenda or a couple agendas, we gotta decide on what we want that 5 acres that goes with the laundry building to look like. And every option I'm seeing extends to this line.
Well, and I'm not 100% sure right now of where that line is. I know that Snyder had marked it out, and we had given it to you. But if for example, it is the line you're pointing to, which I think it is Young's Park, then yes, so then that one soccer pitch would go away. And
Okay,
we'd have one big one and we'd have 3 little ones.
because the 3 options I'm looking at for the 5 acres that goes with the laundry building all extend to here.
Right. So that's why I say we got moving parts and we don't have a proposal. That's something we work through, but we would honor that line and make the
Well,
adjustments.
I just want everybody to be aware of that.
Well, no, and I'm
Yeah.
wanting to be clear that
Yeah.
we're not gonna muck up a laundry building deal. By any means, because that's a very important development.
So Glenn, do we have any idea, and maybe this is something for future, but to know like how much ground, because I mean, obviously the city owns this. And then this would be the county VA ground. Do we know how much that is?
Yeah.
So this, and then including up to that, but I would think that we were gonna cut this off to about here.
Yeah, so I'm gonna use round numbers because that's probably close to an acre. Including that area, the county land was about 9 acres. Young's Park right now is about 9 acres. So if we were to take the 3.25 out of Young's Park, put 3.5 here, be 9 minus
6, so, yeah.
9 minus 3.5 is like 5.5.
Yeah.
And then if we were to subdivide it for development, you usually lose 25 or 30% for
Yeah,
roads.
I personally don't want to hinder anything that, I mean, you guys know what best for you guys in your development plan.
Yeah.
I just want to make everything work together.
Well, exactly, but so that's why I'm saying, so of the 6 acres, there's probably 4.5 acres of developable land there. Because we have to replace the ball field on 14.
Okay.
And just to give you an idea, the appraisal estimate, I think, I don't have the number in front of me, but it was probably 35,000 an acre. Something like that.
This was just.
Can you use the mic? We're probably, it's just easier.
Just to give you a little background on the slide that you're seeing here, a real high level concept, more an exercise for us just to see what type of space we had in working with the soccer clubs, baseballs, little leagues, different people, those organizations that have all been coming to us for so long saying, we need this, this, and this. We're trying to say, well, okay, how can we make this work realistically? So it was more of an exercise for us to just say, what can you fit in here? Is it even worth doing? You know, if we could only fit one field and one ball field and one soccer field, well, maybe it's not big enough to even make it work. We didn't know. So it's just kind of it's.
So that's what I say. I think you guys know better than I do. 'Cause you're dealing with it every day. So
I just didn't want you to get caught up in the lines there. It just was more just kind of a general space.
Okay.
Does it kind of fit? Can we make something work? Real rough, high level.
Yeah, so we have a lot of pieces in the puzzle. They're moving parts. Nothing happens if you're not interested in working with us on this. As I say, we'll have to step back and figure out a plan B. But the basic idea is there. We've already got 80 parking spaces, the washrooms, the maintenance building, the skate park, and the children's play area already in Young's
Yeah.
Park. They'll stay. The 400,000 or so that we can sell the commercial site, that the existing ball field on Highway 14 for, we can build one diamond at the very least and some soccer fields. With fundraising and some city money, we can put 2 million into.
So if I understand this correctly and kind of jumping ahead and trying to look at this a little bit, if you guys were to do this, if we were agreed to doing this would free up the ground at the Marion County Park in the future, once this was developed and done?
Yeah, KYAA is here, Jordan, I believe. Or is he? Perhaps not. Anyway, I've been talking with them, working on this stuff. And what they basically said is if we have 4 new diamonds here, we don't need the campground diamonds. And basically, if you want to expand the camping there, nobody has a problem with it. In fact, everybody admits that this would be a better location for the community, and the new facilities means that you don't have to upgrade yours.
Well, in speaking with past county conservation staff, been in on meetings in the past where we've talked about those ball fields, if we ever did build a complex.
Yep.
I don't know what Cale's plans are now, I guess, not to speak for him, but that those would go away and we would take care of Little League, travel ball, and everything here at this complex. So it's about the same swap. I think those ball fields out at the county park are 7.91 acres
Yeah.
roughly. Hard to get to need some updating. I think my personal opinion is that fits better for camping out there, and we could have a better complex that we could be proud of and more accessible as well.
Okay,
So-
all right. Yeah, I do think that that's something that we have to think about at the county, Jim and Steve, in regarding and working with the conservation department if we were to go this direction.
Right.
Because we'd want to think about, how many camping spots could possibly be there. And the opportunity in which economically that could provide too. So, yeah, Glenn, I'm not
I'm-
trying to,
No,
I'm
we're
just,
just
I'm
about done.
wondering, I'm wondering if we shouldn't try to set up some time, to try to do, before you leave, to try to do maybe like a work session in this.
Yes.
And just discuss it, and maybe have to be outside of a regular meeting. And, maybe just do it, so, cause sometimes the meetings, we never know when they're gonna end, but,
Well, and
have it
I
for
was
public,
hoping
but-
that would be the next step. And then after that, if we're still on track, we'd work with perhaps some of your staff. That would be most
Okay.
appropriate. I can quickly go through the others. and
Okay,
have-
yep, if you would, then we'll just
Next
finish up there.
slide. Benefits, you get the proceeds from the sale of the laundry building that we've connected, the multi-resident, single-family lots that get developed in this process. We get the sale of the existing ball field for commercial development because it's not part of the VA, but that goes into the park, right?
Correct. That's how you're going to fund the park itself.
Yeah,
if
that,
you-
well, if we have 400,000 in the land, we can pretty much raise the rest, we think.
Okay.
Whether it's our own money or whether it's donations and state grants and stuff. We share the TIF from the laundry and the multi-res project, the single-family homes based on the 28E. We share the sales tax from the, through the normal means from both whatever happens in the laundry building, also the commercial development on Highway 14 and any tournament spending spinoff that happens with the new diamonds. And you have the freedom to reuse the old diamonds in the park. I think there's just one, the costs are obvious. $1 million for the boulevard, 2 million or so for us to build this new park facility instead of 12 that we can't afford. We have to extend Liberty Lane. I'm guessing it's 300-400, but I don't know. And there's that 9 acres of land or possibly 8 with the, when we take into consideration the line that we agreed to with the laundry building. That is a contribution. It's a cost in terms of the land. Whether there's an exchange between us and the county is something that gets worked on.
Okay.
That concludes the presentation. Brandon, we had a slide with Brandon and.
Okay, all right, yep. If you have, thank you, Brian.
So just gonna touch, Glenn has kind of stole my thunder in a couple of these things, but I just kind of wanted to kind of give it a standpoint from Parks and Recreation Director. So I'm working with these groups on a daily basis. I see these needs. I have kids in this community. I've invested my time and energy here and I want to see it improve. The quality of life aspect, I mean, is huge. I mean, we want to attract people to Marion County. We want to keep them in Marion County. We want people to have their tournaments here in Marion County instead of driving to Des Moines and spending money shopping, gas, food, lodging. We bring these fields to Knoxville. You will have tournaments in this community. People will stay in Pella, they'll stay in Knoxville. You'll shop, you'll buy food, all those things. You'll stay at the campgrounds. These things are huge right now. If you look all the way around us right now, over there in the Indianola, the Board of Supervisors over that way just approved I think it's a $3.1 billion complex that will be north of Indianola. That is what everybody is doing right now. It's either you get on board or you fall behind. So this community deserves nice ball fields. Little League can be the users. We've got our KYAA, our high school, rec department, everybody, school district, everybody would be using this facility. So
Brandon, I think there's a note to make sure that people understand Knoxville has something unique, where a lot of cities don't. They have, I don't know who does this, but who does the 3, 4, 5 year? I mean, because some of these cities don't start until 5, correct?
Yep.
When they come like baseball and soccer and things like that. But we've got it at a younger age.
Yep.
And I know that they're using the facilities and, that's something that those that are living maybe outside of Knoxville are using that too? Is that how's that working? I guess?
Absolutely. So we have a blast ball for 3 and 4-year-olds, which is basically an introduction to T-ball. We have anywhere from 70 to probably 90 participants each year. We get people from Pella, from Tracy, from Bussy, from Melcher that come up here and play that introduction to basically introduction to baseball and softball.
Okay.
So,
And is that unique? Is it?
I mean, it is. I mean, 3's pretty young. A lot of places will do it at 4 to 5-year-olds. So,
Okay.
yeah, we're just trying to provide opportunities for people to get, active and want to be in these communities. So, this complex is something that we've looked at for years. We've done a Parks and Rec master plan. We've had the community input sessions. This is what we hear every day. I mean, ball fields, ball fields, ball fields. You can never have enough ball fields. And, with the county park, you're limited. That's just too little league. So we're trying to house everybody on one ball field, that front one, there at Young's Park, which is pretty much impossible to do.
Okay.
So,
So Knoxville is doing this. Pella currently is not, correct? They don't have the 3 and 4-year-old.
I'm not sure if they've
program.
got the 3 and 4, but they have quite a few programs. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
with their 7 diamonds over there, I mean, they've got a lot of action as well. But, I mean, Little League numbers are really good right now. I have my children in Little League and coaching them there. There's definitely a need for ball
Okay.
field space.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, we're putting ourselves out there on a capital campaign. I've told Heather and Glenn from the start, we get the land, I will hit the streets and do my best to get naming rights and sponsorship and make this happen and make this a reality. And I mean, one last thing, the area, it just fits. I mean, if you go stand out there, I challenge you guys to go out to Young's Park, have a vision, look out that way. You can see the Veterans District, you can see the splash pad, the park, the trail. We already have ball fields. It's a good location. It's right there on 14. I think we'll pull all kinds of communities up this way, which, helps local option sales tax and the restaurants and all that fun stuff. So.
Well, board, Jim, Steve, I don't know if you have any further questions, but I do think that this would be something that we just need to further discuss. I think there's just working and doing as a work session, and trying to get this done, figuring out something. And when Jim's back also, and before Glenn leaves, so could be in communication if.
Keisha, we would be happy to coordinate a work session if you want us to do that. We can reach out and try to set something up. You guys do meet during the day.
Yep.
The last time we had a work session with the county, it was in the evening. It is kind of hard. Most of our council members are working during the day. So I don't know if you guys are
I'm open to an evening.
willing to do it in an evening or something like that. They may be open as well. I just know it is tougher for them to get out through
Why don't we discuss? Yeah, we can work through that
Okay.
process, and so we can
try to coordinate with you guys and get a time set up that we can get a work session here shortly. Thank you.
We'll work with you any way that makes sense.
No, I get it. I appreciate that, Glenn, and I appreciate Heather.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you for your consideration.
Yeah, I asked that you guys, if you could, stick around for the next 2, and then you'd be done, because we have a couple other things that I want to make sure you're aware of. With that, there's no further questions. I'll entertain a motion to close discussion.
I move we close discussion.
I'll
I'll
second.
support.
I think it was supported by Johnner. Okay, thanks you. So Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Okay, on to item number 2, which is the VA Laundry Building Committee. Board, I have asked that this agenda be put on. What I'm seeking here is I'm wanting to set up a committee that would help facilitate the sale of the VA laundry building. I'm suggesting that the committee would be a board of supervisor representative, and I'm willing to do that, and the county attorney. And then possibly we're probably going to need Chris Nestabe's help also. County attorney, I've spoke with First Assistant Ross, and this is something similar to when they did the sale of the county home. They did this committee, so that is why I'm asking to do this. It'll help streamline the process. Don't know if you have any questions, but that's what I'm thinking.
I have no questions. I think that sounds like a good idea to make a committee.
Okay, all right. Are you good with that, Steve, or?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. kind of thought we were already headed in that direction.
Yeah, but we have to formally set that committee to
Okay,
be able to, we as a board have to agree in
Right.
public and say, hey, this is what we're looking at and this is how we're going to, help streamline the process and move forward. So.
okay, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so seeking a motion that would form a committee with myself, the county attorney, Ross Gibson, and Chris Nestaby to help facilitate the sale of the VA laundry building.
Gus,
I'll make that motion.
Second,
McCombs,
aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Browner,
Aye.
Keisha, just again, as a partner in this whole entire process, the city would be happy to sit on that committee.
Okay.
We just have a representative there, we're happy to sit in there and help. I know we've had some of those
Right, yeah.
previous meetings
And we
with
definitely,
city, county.
I foresee that we will definitely be in communication.
Yeah, happy to help however we can. We understand the challenges there, so whatever we can do to help.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. On to item number 3, which is the VA laundry building site. I thought that it was complimentary that with the city of Knoxville being here, that I also felt that it was important that we put together, and as a board, we discussed, while the city is here, the options in which how the 5 acres would lay around the VA laundry parcel. So do we have those up? Yeah, we do. Okay. Anne in the real estate in the auditor's office was able to help us kind of come up with what these options could look like. We have option number 1, which would be how similar, something similar to, I believe, how the road structure is. And that's how the 5 acres formates around the building. Go on to option number 2. I think when looking at this, when I started looking at options 2 and 3, I'm struggling because we're going too much south and we're going into buildable lots. I felt like it just made more sense to keep it more east and west versus north and south. But I want to hear from the board, and if you want to go ahead and show option number 3. Okay, yeah, so. Board, do you have any thoughts, questions? City, do you have any input?
Hey, Keisha, real quick question. Why are we designated that we're required to sell 5 acres? Why are we landed on 5 acres as part of this parcel?
The 5 acres went with, when we did the survey, that is what we were told with the amount of building size to go, the land size to be able to handle parking and with the 24,000 square feet of size of the building. That's what the survey.
Okay,
So
understood.
I should say the appraisal strongly suggested. Are you thinking something different, Jim?
No, I was just curious. A lot of times the development goes like that and then doesn't necessarily have that much space associated with it as well. I'd also be curious, the usability of that water tower, does that need to be removed? I suspect that it probably does. And who'd be responsible
It's
for
already
it if
been
it was
removed.
included?
Yeah, sorry, that map has not been updated. But it has, we did remove that when we, before your time, Jim, when we pulled all the scrap out of the building. We also had the water tower, that was an alternate, and we went ahead and went with that because we felt like the upkeep on the water tower was gonna be too much.
I appreciate that. I actually drove out there and looked at it. I don't recall seeing the water tower, but seeing it in the pictures gave me the impression that it was still there. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Nope, I get it.
I also would think that we would want to try to make that lot line to the east so that the ballparks and everything still potentially would work for the city. I think it's irrelevant for the potential new owners of that laundry building where that lot line is, as long as they get 5 acres for their parking. I wouldn't necessarily think they'd care if it was east or west of the building.
Okay.
It just, you had asked about the city. Your first option that's on the screen now is closest to what we had lined up. And on that map where you had the different colored streets, Snyder had identified the 5-acre site and the 10-acre school site next to us, so we could line up that street.
Okay.
That gives us 500 feet on Liberty or on Veterans Boulevard for housing. But my guess is they're pretty close.
So option one would work better with your plan.
Yeah, in fact, you probably would push the eastern line on option one a little bit to the west, but take the southern line and drop it a bit, and we'd probably line up pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we may need to get, Glenn, if you have that from, you said, who was it, Schneider and Associates or something did that?
Yeah,
We
and
have something.
it's
Yeah.
actually on that colored map.
It is.
Um,
It is on that?
In
Okay,
our presentation with the streets.
okay.
Me personally, if I was going to be the purchaser of the VA or the laundry site, my preference would be site one.
Right.
If I were purchasing.
I think we also have to consider, if this building is going to work with the racetrack at
Right.
all, they've got to be able to access in here. The railroad is a unique beast in itself. And-
This option definitely gives, if the racetrack comes into play with whoever purchases, this gives them a lot more option to work with.
We're
Yeah.
completely flexible,
Okay,
whatever works best.
all right. So we're looking at option one, the 5 acres closer in that area is what we're looking at.
That would be
So,
my preference.
Okay, all right.
I would agree
Jim?
with that. I would think that would work the best for everybody involved.
Okay, all right. Well, with that, so that we can continue to move the process forward,
But until we have some
we're gonna
further
have some
discussions,
survey
this
done,
is
yeah.
probably not going to be set in stone.
correct, yep.
Yeah.
It'd be similar to option, number one.
Right, similar to
Yeah.
option number one,
Yeah.
yes.
So that would be, we're gonna have to have a survey done at some point, when, selling the ground, so that would play into that also. So with that, if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion, that we would be looking at, similar to option number one or parcel number one.
Yes,
Are you making that motion?
yes, so moved.
I'll support.
Mueller,
I,
Donner,
Aye.
Combs.
Aye.
On to item number 3. Hang on. Thank you, City. I'll give you a minute. I appreciate you guys coming and appreciate all your assistance, and we look forward to that, doing that work session. So, okay. All right. Yep. Yep. On to item number 3, which is Central Iowa Regional Housing Authority. Craig Egan. Craig represents the board on this, and I want to thank him for that. And he's going to give us an update. Mr. Egan, I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning.
Right.
I have served at the pleasure of the Marion County Board of Supervisors for, well, since my 8-year term as supervisor ended, another 6 approximately, so we're about 14 years on the Central Iowa Regional Housing Authority Board. This group of several counties is responsible for distribution and proper usage of the HUD money that comes from the feds, obviously. I just printed off a few things here from our most recent meeting to share with you, give you an update. Generally, things are going well with this authority. We did have a situation where we had a long time, 20+ year executive director that retired about 3 years ago. Caught us a little bit by surprise, and it was a bit of a process to make that replacement. We put someone in place that we assumed we probably have for a period of time, and then they retired not too long ago after about 1.5 years. The second time went a little easier. We had pushed more toward developing an assistant executive director that has moved into this position, and so it's going well. Again, with the papers I left you with the packet, copy of the agenda, on the notice of the executive meeting, I might point out on the back side of it,
Mhm.
where it says Central Iowa Regional Housing Authority, that, you can see on there the counties that are involved, Boone, Dallas, Jasper, Madison, Marion, and Story County that are involved in that. Now, Marion County has the smallest footprint of anyone in this group, and that's the way things are because Knoxville has what they call their low rent housing agency of Knoxville that takes care of the more local situation. Marion County has never been highly involved. There was a gentleman from the name of Calhoun from Pleasantville that served several years on that board as an appointee. And so there are some vouchers used in Pleasantville, and we own some properties. Sura owns some properties in Melcher and Dallas. But you can see on there the largest number is Dallas County and then Story County with 400, 300, so forth, as far as the way the vouchers are used. And this page where it shows the Section 8 vouchers and the number, which is just right in the area of 1,000 vouchers that are used all the time. And the monthly totals of what distributes those vouchers is in the area of $600,000. So it's approximately $600 per voucher that goes out. Now, on the backside of that same sheet, it has the Surha owned housing, and that includes the 6 units that we have in Melcher and Dallas and several others in other counties. And then it comes as a lot of the work of the board. We have upkeep with those owned properties. We do different things. You know, we may need to go in and replace flooring in 120 units or something to that effect. But again, things are going well with Surha. Yeah, I don't know what the future should be. I would assume it would be good to maintain the relationship with Surha as we have, and if things would ever change with the Knoxville Low Rent Housing Authority. But that and then there's the own housing vacancies that it shows there, and in this particular time, everything is full in Melcher and Dallas, which even though there's just a few of them, they have, that has not always been the case. I didn't bring everything from our pack we go over, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I know something that the Board of Supervisors found interesting last time, and it's a bit of a thorn in our side to all of us, is what they refer to as the port outs. And so there's one page there that describes that. And this is the way the feds have it set up for people to be able to move, and that's a necessary situation sometimes. We almost have the feeling that this might be abused sometimes, and we run our agencies or our authorities hopefully a little more efficient in Iowa and than some places do, and we have people will come from large cities wherever, the Midwest, the West Coast, East Coast, and will apply for a voucher. They need to be in the area as a citizen for at least a year and have proof of employment and et cetera. And before they can work their way to the top to receive a voucher. And then they many times move back to the city they come from. And you'll see on there that some of these happen to be rather expensive. Our average voucher, as I
They take their
referred to,
voucher with them.
is about, excuse me,
They
Steve,
take their voucher with them.
they take their voucher with them. Our average voucher is about $600 is what we spend per voucher to serve the people of Iowa, or in this case, of this Central Iowa Regional Housing Authority. When they take their voucher with them, there's no situation for the other, they're not bound to pay for these, and we end up paying for them, and as much as $2,300 per month, where ours is $600. So we could serve 3 to 4 people many times with what we have to pay for a voucher that goes back to another area, whether it be a Seattle, Washington area, or Chicago, Illinois area, or different places.
How does that make sense, Craig? How do they?
None of it makes sense, and it's the way it is, Steve. We have spoken both individually and as a board to both Senator Grassley and Senator Ernst, and the problem is that the representative from other counties, if you're a representative from Chicago or Seattle, they're very happy that Iowa is willing to
I bet they are.
subsidize these. And anyway,
It
it's
is interesting, Craig, because you've
Yes.
got three that, I mean, are in the Illinois area that are all in one area. So it's like, oh, they told their friends, move over to Iowa, get on, you know, funny. Get on their housing and then you can move back. So the public knows, there's one from Houston, in Texas. The rent is $2,700.
again, and ours average is about $600
Yep.
in our authority.
I don't know how they consider $2,700, you know, affordable, you know, rent, housing.
Wouldn't be for me.
And believe me, we've questioned that. We've questioned that too.
Yeah,
But this is a small part of what we do, and we're managing, and we do have with our newer executive directors, we're putting some pressure on and trying to build these and see if we can develop any change in that situation. But again, it's a small part of what we do, but I know you
Yeah.
found it interesting last night, and I
No,
thought I would share it with
is,
you.
yeah, I
It
appreciate
hasn't
that.
gotten any better, I guess I can.
There's
I
still
could say
13
that.
of them, yes.
Yeah.
13 that have come here and then moved out with the vouchers, so. Well, I
So that
appreciate
is-
it, Craig.
And, you know, that's the majority of what our process is. We, on a monthly basis, we go over our budgets very closely, using a percentage of, you know, where we're at during the year and what should have been spent or received, or see other things. But, anyway, can I answer any questions for the supervisors now?
I don't have anything. I just want, me personally, I'll let the others, but I want to thank you for serving. I appreciate it. Since you were a supervisor, you know, you have served on this board and I appreciate your willingness to do that. So you do a great job, so.
No, I have no question. And I too want to thank you, Craig. I know it's a thankless job.
Well, I know how many, and the reason we talked about this to begin with is, I had served on this board, obviously, and it does offer a valuable service to a lot of people that need some support.
I wish we could keep it here.
So,
Great.
Enough.
Greg, thank you for your continued service, and I don't have any questions either.
Thank you.
you're welcome, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate your time. Appreciate the update. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to close discussion.
So moved.
Second,
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
On to item number 5. This is the engine brake ordinance. This is, I placed this on, we had spoke about this last fall and there was no decision made. Mr. Phillips is with us this morning and Mr. Phillips has requested that we as a county and a board of supervisors discuss implementation of an engine brake ordinance. And he has especially expressed his concern in front of his property, which is located at 477 Highway 92 in Pleasantville, Iowa. I guess board, I'd like to recap a little bit, and I know Tyler, last time you had spoke to us and give us some numbers in regarding what it would cost. The overall cost estimate would be, you know, if we were looking at different locations and whether we would be looking at doing the signs, and then if we were to do this ordinance, what it would look like to be implementing it across the whole county. Correct? I believe you sent us the recap of that. If we were to do the whole county and signed it, it would be what, 57 locations if we decided to adopt, and it could be upwards of almost $29,000. It's $28,500.
Yeah, that was based off the county attorney's comments with their discussions of how the ordinance could possibly be implemented.
Okay.
So a countywide ordinance and signing it at the entry points to Marion County,
Okay. All right.
with us doing state highways as well.
Right. Sheriff, we've also spoke to you a little bit about last fall and regarding if this ordinance was in place. I mean, how would you monitor that? How would that be?
Well, I think it's the legal question for our county attorney in regards to, can we do it site specific, or does it have to be posted in every entry point coming into the county?
That's the question I have.
So that's, I mean, I think it's a legal opinion in regards to do that. I'm supportive if there's certain areas that we're having problems, if we can post those areas and try to enforce it in a specific spot versus trying to post the whole county side of it, but I'm not the attorney, so I'll pass it over to our county attorney.
I think as we discussed the last time, this was before the board, we did look into this issue, and the direction that we were given back from the DOT was that it needed to be a countywide ordinance. There is no black letter law on this that I could find, but that was the direction that we were given. That's their interpretation of it. So that's the information that we got, and I really don't have a whole lot more to add than that. There's not a lot of, like I said, black letter law on this topic.
Okay, all right. And
I understand the countywide ordinance part of it, but can it be sign specific? That's my
I
question. Or do
wouldn't
we
think
have,
so.
or do we have to place signs at every point of entrance?
That was the direction that we were given.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think the questions from the DOT, it's where I struggle with it as the sheriff, is we have county ordinances that we don't post every entry coming into the county.
Yeah.
So if it's, I mean, if there's certain areas that if we have a countywide ordinance, but we only post it in certain areas, it applies everywhere, but I don't, the question that is gonna be the posting side of it. I mean, because obviously at Tyler's estimate, that's way too expensive to try to do something along those lines, but
It is to try to control one spot.
yeah, if there's a few spots or over type of a deal that, so
Hey.
I think the DOT is maybe where the guidance is coming from on part of that, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know on other counties if they are posting every entry point. I think we originally talked about maybe Scott was, or some of the other ones, and so that's kind of where the guidance came from, so.
Okay.
I know you and I kind of had a discussion the other night, but to something that's almost unenforceable, but if it were enforced and revenue was generated from this, Jared, if a ticket was issued on a state highway, does that revenue go to the state or does it come back to the county?
I don't think that money comes back to the county. I think that's
I'd have to check on that, Steve.
Well, that's my,
It may not be as simple as one or the other. There may be
well, I
needs
know.
both ways, but yeah, I sometimes don't see where that goes, but I can certainly
Well,
look. into
that's my point. I don't know either, Jared, but you know, if we're gonna do an ordinance and the state's gonna reap the benefits of it, then let them put the signs up. Right.
Without looking at it specifically, there's probably a portion that comes back to the county, but again, I would just need to look to make sure.
Well, yeah, okay, let's find that out. And if it's just a portion, then let's hit the DOT up to help pay for their side of the sign.
does the speeding tickets, if they give a speeding ticket, does any of the money come back to the?
Well, there's lots of different ways that citations can be issued. I mean, it depends on whether it's written under a state code or a city ordinance, or because there's overlapping laws. So it just depends on how it's written.
I don't want to spend $30,000 to generate revenue for the state.
If I might interject just a thought here on this whole process, maybe from a philosophical standpoint, I have a little heartburn in creating a law that applies to every citizen and visitor in the county for one complainant, for one area that's having an issue. I'm just thinking that at this point, it sounds like we're swatting flies with a sledgehammer.
While I've been on the board, I will say Mr. Phillips is probably the only one that I have received in complaints of this. I'm sure the sheriff probably has heard other complaints. Sheriff, is there a way that, I mean, when you're through that you could, monitor a little bit, sitting there and seeing, I mean, have you?
We have had complaints in other areas also. There are other people that are interested in it. The problem is we can't, I mean, just because there's a complaint, unless there's a law to enforce, we can't just randomly pull people over and say, hey, please don't do that. I mean, we have to have probable cause and a reason to do that. And there has to be something on the books to do that.
And the part that I struggle with also is afterwards, right? You pull up and you thought you heard it or whatever, or somebody's complaining that they're hearing it. And, how do you stop that person when it's just the owner is complaining? I mean, how do we even enforce this? Sometimes we do ordinances and then we're putting ourselves at jeopardy because we can't even enforce them because, we've got too many, and that's also a concern.
And how do you draw the line between a loud vehicle versus an engine brake ordinance? If I've just got a car without a muffler or a bad muffler, then does it apply to them too? Or should it?
Well, my opinion is that it would depend on how the statute is written. It could be narrowly constructed to say, engine brakes or what's commonly referred to as a Jake brake only. I suppose that could be a possibility. And as far as other loud cars and things like that, I think there are probably some existing statutes that cover those things, that a muffler has to be in good working order and things like that.
About a muffler, period. There's a lot of vehicles with no mufflers. You can imagine living there with a straight pipe semi, chrome stack, polished, engine brake every 18 gears, 5 o'clock in the morning. I can bring more people if I need to bring more people. One I'm had to leave for a 10 o'clock meeting. One's sitting right here. One person, 2 or 3 people had work, another person had a doctor appointment. There's quite a few people that aren't very happy with all the noise. And I'm not here to complain about loud cars and Harleys without mufflers and trucks without mufflers and Hondas without mufflers. It's just annoying. It's really super annoying. Don lives in Pleasantville and it annoys him 2 miles away.
Right.
It's just.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It is. It is hard.
I have it at my house.
You have 20,000 cars a day like I do.
Well, not 20,000, no.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's all,
I'm struggling with the $30,000 when we have other issues going on now that we need to finance.
Yeah, I just, board, I wanted to bring it, before you today, because I do think I do think it's time that
Not for me, they don't.
I do think it's, okay. I think it's time that, we give a decision to Mr. Phillips, whether we're looking at doing, such an ordinance or not. Because I think it needs some closure is what I'm looking at, so.
Well, I don't want to make a decision yet till I hear some answers from the county attorney on whether if any revenue generated, if it goes back to the state, or can we do sign specific?
But are you gonna be, and this is something that you and I are just discussing, I guess, is that gonna offset the roughly $28,000?
It'll never offset it because you can't enforce it.
So I think you've answered your question. I think that's the problem. So,
It'd be very tough.
We have to, the question
hey,
is.
Jason, thanks.
I mean, if there's an ordinance, we can enforce that. It's the question on where the signage is. It's on the discussions that from the Scott County discussions, I think is what Jared was saying. It's like, if we have to post every area coming into Marion County, I don't think that's feasible. I agree with Steve on that side of it. If it can be done for a lesser cost and we can do site specific areas.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily opposed to that.
Right, but I think that's the question that we don't know right now. Is that fair, Jared? I mean, or do we know that?
To answer your question, Mr. Phillips, about the enforceable part, it's enforceable, but when you're gonna be there to enforce it,
It's just like speed limit. I mean, you can't enforce every single
Exactly, exactly.
Just trying to eliminate 95% of it, you know,
Mhm.
that's all I'm trying to do. You're not gonna get all this stuff, and I don't expect the patrolman to sit there 24/7, just.
Well, let's get
Jared,
some of these
yeah.
answers.
Yeah, I mean, is that something that we could get an answer to? I mean,
And if I lived on a hill, it'd be different.
Yeah.
I've mentioned before, it's flat.
Yeah.
Why do they have to do every 18 years? I don't get it. Don't get it.
They might do it 10 times a day and they do it every time, like it's now.
Well, I know why they do it. It saves on their brakes.
Like I said, when we looked at this issue before, there wasn't a lot of black letter law on it, you know, not a lot of clear answers. We were relying upon the opinion that we got from the DOT and how Scott County reacted to their ordinance issue. So if you'd like me to look at it further, I can certainly do that. I'm just not sure that I'm going to be able to come back with great definitive answers.
and Jared, I also would like to say this, that if this ordinance were passed and then you were able to do one location, then multiple people could be requesting for that
Well,
sign
that's
also.
exactly, then it'll get to the point where it gets up to the $30,000 already. Then when it gets to that point, then you gotta move the signs.
Right. I mean, the issue is that if we have an ordinance like that, in order for it to be enforceable, people have to have notice that the ordinance exists. And that's when we get into why we need to enforce it or post it, you know, at the edges of the county, because if people are driving through and there's no sign and there's just one sign here and one sign there that are in the heart of the county, then someone could very easily say, well, you know, I was using my Jake brake and I didn't know you had an ordinance. So it becomes an issue of
Well, they do
enforcing
if they
it.
see the sign.
Yes, but
Well,
if they, but
right.
if they're. if
Even,
we're just-
even if it's site specific, if the sign is there, oh, I can't use them here.
Right, but if they're in a different area that it's not signed and they use their Jake brake, then they could
Oh, I
be.
see what you're saying. Yeah, if it's a county, yeah.
Most of the trucks are locally operated. And they should be responsible enough to know what laws are in effect for the county. And if it's posted in most locations, I'm not an attorney, whether it is be all locations in the county, they're gonna know. They're gonna know it's not allowed in Marion County. Now, they're going into Polk, they're going into Warren. Use your Jake brakes, but I would just think that they, you know, the owners of the trucking companies, managers, they're gonna know. It's gonna be posted in the local newspaper. It seems like it's pretty simple and obvious to me, but maybe not.
All right, Jim, do you have any other further thoughts?
No, I don't. I've already expressed my concern about applying a law to the entire county for just a few instances or a few locations that are a problem.
Okay. So, Jim and Steve, what are you guys, are you seeking? I think we,
I don't know. I understand what you're saying, but I also know the finances that we're dealing with right now.
I met you with you guys with this about 5 years ago, and it was a good thing. One goes through, or one person decided people that have this truck brake saved.
What?
Talked to the county supervisors, I talked to DOT, I talked to all of them. And they was all for putting these signs up.
Well, I'm sure the DOT was, because they don't have to pay for it.
he's talking about the board at one point.
But they was all gonna go to help me out. And then all of a sudden, one of the local drivers that has most of these trucks said, no, we gotta have them to save our brakes. I mean, no mountains here. I drove a truck for 40 years and I don't even use them in the mountains.
Mhm.
And these trucks that's making all the noise have been adapted to make noise. a standard truck that you buy won't be that noisy. Take the mufflers off and it's a toy.
Make a short notes.
Okay, so
Same
the,
problem right now. The right up before it right before it comes in the flood.
yeah, no, I understand, yeah.
It's called rain. I do.
So if we place signs at major entrance points to the county, we can't place them at every county road because that would be really cost prohibitive. Or was that 29,000 every road or
Yes,
what's?
that was 20, there's 28.5, but that's what Scott County did, and that's what the county attorney is expressing to us.
Yeah, I know.
Is he's saying, if we're going to do that, you know, and we need to sign.
Well,
so that
most trucks are,
patrons-
so ain't gonna be on some gravel roads, they can't get over the bridges anyway.
92, S45, T16, and 163.
Yeah, that was the major, that was the paved points of entry.
Paved point, that was
Yeah.
paved points of entry, $29,000.
Yeah, but we would be responsible for the Iowa DOTs as well,
How many?
if there's an ordinance.
And while they're discussing that, Jim,
15
I am
locations.
with you. I am to the point. I think that, I just don't think that at this point, it's something that we should be, A, spending the money on, B, that it's gonna be really hard to enforce. So I'm in favor of not doing an ordinance.
The $30,000 is all paved entrance, right?
That was 15 locations, all paved, county and state. At the county.
And then perpetual maintenance
Perpetual maintenance, yeah.
and not knowing even if it's enforced on what kind of funds we're gonna receive to offset our costs. We don't know that.
And the sign doesn't, sign makes it enforceable along with enacting the ordinance. The
Yeah,
sign doesn't
I know that.
stop.
Us that on the engine brake ordinance side of it, that we're not gonna have near enough
Yeah, I know.
citations to
Yeah, I know,
offset that.
Yeah.
I know. Well, at this point in time, I would second the motion. Did you make a-
I didn't make the motion. I just said to Jim where I was
Mhm.
at. I do need a motion. If we're not going to do the ordinance, that we need a motion that we're not looking to implement an engine brake ordinance.
At this point in time, I'm not ready to do an ordinance
For an engine brake.
for an
ordinance.
engine brake
Okay.
at this point.
I'll support that.
McCombs,
Aye.
Mueller,
I,
Hunter.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. On to item number 6, which is Marion County Courthouse, 3rd floor courtroom. Mr. Harmon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Before I make any comments, I just want to thank Jenny Webster again for coming down today from the judicial branch and all her support with this potential project. As I've discussed with this board before, in my estimation, we are running short on courtroom space with just having 2 courtrooms. Just last week, we had a jury trial along with 2 court service days, and that's 3 courtroom requirement, and we have 2. And so we had 2 district court judges here, along with a district associate court judge, and only 2 chambers. And so the clerk of court graciously gave up her office and didn't come to Marion County. She's also the clerk of Jasper County that day, so a district court judge could have another chambers. And it was incredibly awkward to try to conduct court that way when we're having to go into the clerk's office, which is a secure area, to talk to a judge. So this is a real need for the county, in my opinion. And I believe I forwarded along to the board the cost estimate of this project, which is $21,812.54. That would be Marion County's portion of the funds. State law requires that the county pay 25% of any courtroom construction, and so the state would pay 75% of this project. And the number I gave you is Marion County's portion of it. I want you to keep in mind that that's an estimate. There's some electronics and things like that that go in these courtrooms that cost can vary some, depending on what the situation is. But from what I've learned, I don't envision any wild swings in the cost of this. Obviously, that's in addition to Chris's crew and their time constructing this. So, do you have a question, Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, and Chris couldn't be with us this morning. He wasn't feeling the best, but he did express to me that, if there was questions that, we could reach out, but
Okay.
I don't see that there's anything. I guess to me, I would like to ask, because I did look, the courthouse security fund has roughly $245,000 in it. Is this something that we could take out of the courthouse security fund?
Right. And that's exactly my proposal, is that thankfully, we do have those funds available in courthouse security, so we wouldn't be costing any more taxpayer dollars coming in. We would be using what is already existing there. And, we've been, the board has been financially responsible with that money and been waiting for a good way to use that. And I think that opportunity is here. And obviously, it's a small portion of that fund. So in case there are other things that come up, we would still be able to use that. But to answer your question specifically, yes, I believe this squarely fits into a courthouse security matter.
Okay.
We've had to have court hearings in chambers, in the jury room, and when you have family law hearings, those can be quite contentious. And when you have to shove all those people into one area, it creates a dangerous situation. And jurors and all of that. I could go on. I know we've got a long meeting today, but those are my thoughts, and I think this would be a good thing for the county.
I have a question for Ms. Webster. Is this something that, if we were to get on it, and get it done yet this year, is there going to be an issue on your side of things for the funding portion?
I've spoken with.
I'm assuming after July 1st, I should say, yes.
I apologize. What was your last
I
question?
said, wanting to make sure that, this, if we do our portion, is the state gonna uphold their portion? And regarding, is this something that's gonna be funded in the after July 1st funding cycle?
I've spoken with our finance team and they have indicated that yes, this is doable.
Okay.
No, I agree, and in our previous discussion, this money spent makes more sense going this route that benefits the county as a whole.
Jim, do you have any questions at all? Thoughts?
I have no questions, and I would propose that we move forward with the Marion County third floor courtroom upgrade.
All right. So Jim, that was your motion?
Yes, it was.
Second,
Mueller,
I
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience, Ms. Webster. So
Absolutely. And thank you all. We appreciate it.
on to item number 7. This is an alcohol license for KLN Entertainment, also doing business as Slideways. I believe, board, we received no issues from the sheriff, no issues from environmental health. Do you have any questions?
No, I make a motion, we approve the Class C retail alcohol license for KLN Entertainment.
I'll support that.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Mueller.
Aye.
On to item number 8. This is the public hearing portion for FY 26 proposed Marion County budget. for July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. Again, this is the public hearing portion. Jake, do you have any comments in regarding the public hearing portion for the public?
Nothing new. It seems like this has been ongoing, which it has been since January. Multiple discussions, meetings with departments, you folks all through February. Property tax notice that and the letter in the public hearing several weeks ago. So there's nothing has changed since that time. No new comments.
Okay, no new comments. All right. This is the public hearing portion. Is there any public that is here on behalf of this that wants to speak? Is there anything online? Seeing none, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
I'll support.
McCombs,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye. Item number 9 is resolution 2025-44, which is the adoption of the Marion County budget for FY 26, beginning July 1st of 2025. Board?
Move we adopt resolution 2025-44.
All right.
Second.
Mueller,
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
On to item number 10, which is resolution 2025-45, which is the adoption of the elected official salaries for FY 26.
I move we approve resolution 2025-45.
I'll second.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Item number 11 is resolution 2025-46, which is the Marion County Fund designation for local options, sales and service tax. Board, do you have any discussion on this? Not? Entertain a motion for resolution 2025-46.
I move we approve resolution 2025-46.
Support.
McCombs,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye. On to item number 12, which is resolution 2025-41, which is FY 25-26 suspension of taxes. And there is a parcel number, and I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Michaela, our treasurer.
Yeah, whew, I almost forgot why I was here today.
This would have been better if it was outside.
Yes, for sure, for certain. Anyway, so this is something that I bring to the board every year. The same parcel has been receiving a property tax suspension and continues to qualify every year as we certify with the Department of Human Services on behalf of the board in the treasurer's office that this homeowner does continue to meet the eligibility requirements for a property tax suspension. She has again requested it this year. It's been in place since 2004. I always like to make clear that a property tax suspension does not mean that property taxes are forgiven. It simply means that they are deferred. If at some point in the future that claimant becomes no longer eligible or the property is sold, then all back taxes are due at that time without penalty.
All right. This is something that that has been for the 7 years that I've been here, has been brought before us. So, board, do you have any questions for Michaela regarding this parcel? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution 2025-41.
Second.
Mueller,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Item number 13 is, I believe, also Ms. Michaela's as 2025, or resolution 2025-42, counseling outstanding auditors warrants.
Yes, so this is something I'm required to perform. I consider this again kind of an annual housekeeping duty of the treasurer's office, but per Iowa Code 331.554.7, the treasurer shall cancel any unpaid auditor's warrants that have been outstanding for 1 year or more. So we will cancel any warrants that have not cleared prior to June 30th of 2023. We do work with Jake and Danny in the auditor's office to edit this list ahead of time, make sure there's nothing on there that shouldn't be on there, anything of substantial value that we need to research ahead of time. So this year, the amount that we will be returning to the funds indicated is $1,339.07, which I consider a very reasonable amount.
No, I appreciate your due diligence in this, and thank you for that. Any further questions? Not, I entertain a motion.
I move we approve resolution 2025-42.
I'll support.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Item number 14, resolution 2025-43, which is the cancel outstanding treasurer checks issued prior to 6/3 of 23. Ms. Michaela, you again.
Same process, just on the treasurer's side. In the treasurer's office, we do have a checkbook that we're able to issue usually very nominal amounts, motor vehicle refunds. We do issue our tax sale redemptions, those sorts of items out of that bank account. Same process. This is canceling any unpaid treasurer's checks prior to 6/30 of 2023 and returning those funds to the general fund. This year, again, very nominal amount, $156.
Thank you, Ms. Michaela. No further questions. We'll entertain a motion.
Move we approve resolution 2025-43.
I'll support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela.
McCombs,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
You don't have to yell at me, Jake.
Sorry. I didn't mean to.
Item number 15, which is the Marion County Secondary Road FY26 Iowa Department of Transportation budget. Mr. Tyler.
So this budget as presented is the same as the secondary road budget that was approved earlier in the meeting for the road department. However, it's in the Iowa DOT accounting code system versus the counties. So mirror image, just taking those dollars and shifting them around into different categories and funding codes to meet the DOT requirement. New this year, the dates have changed, so the Iowa DOT process for review is different. So that's why you saw me put this on the agenda without formal approval from the Iowa DOT, which we did receive once I had already put it on the agenda. The difference is it used to require Board of Supervisor approval first, then Iowa DOT approval. But if they had any revisions, we had to come back to you or make amendments and whatnot. So I do agree that with the change, DOT reviews prior to Board of Supervisor approval. There's also a change. It used to be due April 15, now it's due April 30. So we are approaching that deadline for final approval. But again, I'll answer any questions, but the dollars match what was presented to you in January during my budget meeting, just in a different accounting code series.
Tyler, looking through the report, I have one question for you.
Mhm.
This line item right here, 2A, local option sales tax. Is this something that we could designate? Is that what they're looking at? If we as a board designated so much of a percentage? to you on that?
If there was local option sales tax transferred to the secondary road fund.
Correct. Okay.
Currently, if the road department utilizes lost here in Marion County, we make a specific request for that use and it's project specific paid directly from local
Correct,
option sales
correct.
tax.
Yeah, we don't transfer
Yeah,
into.
it's
your
not a
money.
transfer.
My question is since this is more your world and the engineering, do a lot of counties do this?
Some of the larger counties do.
Okay.
I don't know how many. Woodbury County is the one that comes to mind. I know for sure they do, maybe Johnson County, some of the larger, more metropolitan counties.
To help fund. Tyler, do you see that,
They have a reduced transfer from rural basic and offset that with local option sales tax.
Some counties, used that for implementation of the local option sales tax and had it on the ballot. So it directly offset the rural services levy.
Okay.
Yep.
So some of them have lower, which is now with some of the recent legislation changes, having to address certain mechanics of that with different transfers and different things. So, but yes, some counties do use their local option sales tax direct.
To fund their, yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, I just was wondering, how that was looking, but that's it just was intriguing when I saw it. I was like, oh, okay, there's definitely a line there, so. Board, do you have any questions for Tyler regarding this?
No questions here.
Not, I'll entertain a motion, resolution 2025-38.
I move we approve resolution 2025-38.
I'll support.
Mueller,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye. Thank you, Jay.
Item number 16 is resolution 2025-39, which is Marion County Secondary Road Construction 5-year program. Tyler.
So similarly, the process and timelines were amended legislatively last year for the construction 5-year program, or the CFYP. So again, I did submit this for this agenda without final approval. However, Friday evening or Saturday morning, we did receive final approval, and I sent you that final version, which there were very minor edits from the DOT regarding project descriptions to align better with the funding source. There was one add. They had me take a local portion of a road, remove it from a farm to market project and make it a standalone project, even though they'll be bid and let together and be in the same project. We had to show them as two separate projects. It's not the way we used to do it, but just formality.
Okay.
No, funding wise, nothing changed. The program is due by May 15th now. So we do have time here, but I like to present them together and get the process complete. So I'll go through very quickly the document that you were provided with a couple points. I did not have the full blown presentation that I've typically had with 5-year program. Jake's smiling at me. Overall, for countywide projects, the 5-year program encompasses all of the funding sources that we utilize, including local secondary road funded projects, local option sales tax projects, farm to market, which would be state aid, and then highway bridge program, which is federal aid bridge funds, and then STBG, which is the surface transportation block grant, which is the federal aid road funds. In total, out of all those, if you assume that we typically budget around $500,000 from our local secondary road budget, we are allocated or have in our pool of money about $2.7 million per year from all of those allocated sources, and including our typical budget of $500,000 from secondary road fund. Of that, 1.5 million is farm to market. We get about 400,000 of SDBG funds per year, 340,000 of highway bridge program funds, and then, like I said, about $500,000 that we annually allocate, which fluctuates, but typically around $500,000 of late from local. So those are on the decline again. STBG, or excuse me, federal aid is on the decline. Farm to market has a slight increase. I mean, like $30,000 over last year. Federal aid dollars are on the decline. There were some supplemental funds that had come in for bridge funding over the last few years. That's decreasing. Additionally, we have removed a few bridges that are now catching up from federal aid funding formulas. So, they're off-system bridges on level C or B roads that we've closed or removed, and then those become off-system after so many years. So in our 5-year program, page 3 there, Actually, can you go back to page 2, Amanda? There you go. So this page includes our year 1 project. So this is the projects that are budgeted for in the budget you just approved, with specific local or FM dollars. I'll just quickly go through the projects. So County Line Bridge near T14, that's currently budgeted in the current fiscal year, and it was delayed because of some Jasper County projects, and they couldn't make it work. Not a big deal for us. I was able, to accommodate that in the upcoming fiscal year. And then our own project is delayed, the 20th Bridge Replacement Project. So this would be southwest of Melter, Dallas, a small local bridge. It just contractor availability and our time to get the project put together. And we were waiting to bid together, kind of bundle a steel package with the Jasper County project. So the culmination of all that didn't allow us time to get that project completed in this current fiscal year, or won't. The next would be bridge approach repairs. This is something we've been contemplating and toying with for a number of years and really need to pull the trigger on. So there were certain overlay projects where I intentionally omitted replacing or repairing a bridge approach as part of the overlay project. For one, I knew we could do it a lot cheaper if we weren't using federal aid dollars. And 2, we kind of knew we had a bundle of projects on federal aid, farm to market, and local road project or road segments. So we're able to fund that. I'm planning to fund that locally, doing some repairs and work ourselves ahead of time to stabilize, but then letting a contract for a contractor to do the pavement repair and replacement of the actual bridge approach themselves. And we've already started. So last fall, we did some of the stabilization on a few of these bridges, and we'll continue that stabilization work to prevent erosion and undermining of those bridge approach slabs, and then have this project to ultimately improve the ride and the pavement quality there for the long term. The next one there, 110th Place concrete paving. This project is somewhat in conjunction with the Knoxville Waterworks project. We had planned to do a project on 110th to overlay the road. We'd done patching here like probably a year and a half ago now in preparation. Because the way projects got shuffled around, we've delayed our overlay project. And in the meantime, we've had discussions with Knoxville Waterworks about their water main replacement down 110th. Originally, they were looking at the east side of the road. There were some issues with storm sewer. This is one of the areas where we do have storm sewer that's ours. And so I said, well, I'm looking at redoing this intersection as part of our project. And then we have this curb and gutter section that's in really poor condition. Is there a possibility it could go on that side of the road? You guys remove the pavement, we'll put it back. And then you put your water main over there, then we don't have to worry about the storm sewer. And there were some other utilities on that east side. So basically, once the waterworks water main replacement project is complete, we'll take over and redo the intersection where we have already had drainage issues and problems. And all of that work will then set us up for accommodating the overlay, which was going to be a challenge in and of itself with that curb and gutter sections. But by doing it this way, we can accommodate that overlay in the future, which is also in this program. The next one is the City of Monroe County Line project for full depth reclamation and asphalt paving. That is a local option sales tax project that was presented to you earlier. We anticipate that coming before you here fairly shortly with a June letting. T14 pavement improvements. This was bumped up as a result of us applying for the T15 raise grant. So the raise grant application that I brought before you, that shuffled things around a lot as far as farm to market and federal aid funds. T14 is something we've been struggling to fund, 6.5 mile corridor. We got a grant to widen the pavement, but we've just really struggled on where does that fit in. I originally had it as federal aid money, but if the T15 project via the raise grant is funded, that actually frees up farm to market dollars. because our share of this $15 million grant is less than what it would cost us to go out and do that T15 corridor with a much, much, much smaller scope even. So for us to do the minimum effort out there would still be almost triple what we're gonna contribute in farm to market dollars as part of the raise grant. So that frees up 4 million. So we bumped ahead T14. 168th bridge replacement. We've talked about that a number of times. That's been ongoing for nearly 2 years. We're on schedule. You recently approved final design work for the consultant. They're moving into final design. Permitting and NEPA and environmental review is all underway and proceeding accordingly to meet that November letting schedule. So that bridge will let this November with the possibility of construction starting in the winter. And that's on 168th south of G76 over Cedar Creek. Next, we have a couple of bridges kind of fitting a bridge bundle. So when I look at road and bridge projects, I'm looking at them multifaceted. I'm looking at many aspects and reviewing traffic volume, bridge condition, road type, road classification, funding sources, vehicle types, all those things with bridges, with roads. So we have a spreadsheet of our own where we're looking at structurally deficient bridges, functional obsolete bridges. Well, those classifications have went away, but we still call them that. And so in looking at the next 15 years worth of bridge replacement candidates, we've tried to, which ones do we really need to tackle and reprioritize? And are there, okay, if we're looking at one in the next 5 years, can we bundle it with one that maybe needs to be done in year 2? And instead of doing year 2 and 4, we do them together and possibly get some value in bundling and bidding things together. So Dubuque Bridge is one of those candidates that would be bundled with Utah and Dakota. They kind of fit the same criteria. That's something we're looking at. That we're still a ways out. I don't know exactly what revenues are going to look like if there's legislative changes to property taxes. So that, this is best case scenario that we'd be able to do 3 bridges in a bundle, but we'll have to see how that goes. Dakota Street, just for your information, is currently the detour and haul route for the closure of Highway 14. So that bridge was originally planned for FY25 and we delayed that as well once we found out about the closure last year. Then we have the FM Knoxville Area Pavement Improvement Project. This is the one I said included 110th that was delayed, in an effort to wait until the water main project was done. Also, it wasn't really working out with the farm to market funding, trying to get some of these major corridors implemented. T15 corridor pavement improvements. So this is the entire T15 corridor, including on each end part of City of Knoxville, FM extension, and in City of Pella. So the entire corridor from South Fifth Street from Fifth Street to G28. That's roughly a $15 million project with 2 million of farm to market funds. And then there would be some special grant funding and some city contributions to that project as well. But all in all, Marion County's contribution of allocations would be very little in 2 million to do a 10.5 mile corridor. And we hope to find out
the dam.
What's that?
That if you can get across the dam.
Yeah, the anticipated letting for this would be January of 2027. And I just talked to the Corps this morning, estimated completion for the current work on the dam that it's affecting traffic is November of this year, 2025. And they're looking at de-scoping and removing some things from the project, which may move that up. But
Nice.
more to come on that. And we have a couple more bridges. 185th kind of fits in that smaller bridge replacement. Currently it's funded locally. I'm not sure that's going to be feasible, but that's where I left it because I don't have any other options. When we talk about 340,000 of federal aid bridge money, we are indebted to ourselves here in our HBP balance for a number of years with the Flagler Bridge. We'll continue that with 168th. So in our program, we only have 2 more bridges planned using federal aid and bridge funds. There are other options for state and federal discretionary grants. Typically, Marion County does not have good candidates for that. Our bridges aren't in poor enough condition to rate low enough or high enough in their ratings priority point system to make us eligible. Swan Bridge, Flagler Bridge are a couple of the closest that we've ever had, and those were not close enough. Then we have some speculative projects here, local option sales tax of Jewel and 198. These are SEALCO rural residential access route designations. They are local roads, so only funding available would be local secondary road funds or local option sales tax. These are the only rural residential access routes that have not had kind of a major rehabilitation. Some seal coats with that designation have been overlaid. Some have had full depth reclamation. These are kind of the last of those major longer rural residential access routes that haven't had a major treatment. I'm currently proposing local option sales tax. Obviously, that'll have to be a discussion in the future, but that's in FY28. The next would be G76 shoulder widening. This would be a local project to prepare for a speculative grant. So we would apply for a $500,000 grant. If that's not received, this project would go away. So this would be doing the earthwork ahead of a potential shoulder widening and slight curve realignment on the series of curves south of Attica. The reason this is in the program where it is because unfortunately, the way the funding works is a cost benefit. We currently have a fatality here, and that's unfortunate, but that also plays into the funding. If that fatality goes out of the 5-year crash history, then we would no longer be eligible for that funding, unfortunately. The next would be removed. The next project on what we're calling Pella area pavement improvements. These two roads were removed from the T15 corridor project. If we were doing that as a standalone Marion County project for utilizing FM funds and potentially city match for Idaho Drive and 198th, we were going to include those in the T15 corridor project. It just makes sense. We're doing a 10.5-mile corridor. We're going to have the economies of scale with adjacent roads that are already at the end of their useful life. So we would include Idaho and 198th. There obviously are slight challenges there. Portion of 198th is not farm to market, it's local. A portion of Idaho Drive is city of Pellas. We would have to work through how much of that is 50-50, how much of that is 100% city. Denny and I have had those discussions. However, that was removed from the RAISE grant that we applied for. So now it's a standalone project.
It's 198th, right?
198th Amsterdam Hill goes down to
Yeah, you got it
Alsatian.
189th there.
Oh,
Yeah, you got 189 versus 198.
Yeah.
not on mine. That was one of the changes I made in the final version. That one still says preview. The final one is correct. So, I am proposing local option sales tax for a portion of that project. If it doesn't fit farm to market, maybe we get a little more farm to market money in the future, depending on how things go. There's potentially some changes there being proposed legislatively. So we'll have to see. Again, that's in FY28. Two more, and then I'll kind of breeze through the last. So Pella area improvements then has a local two projects. This was the one I described at the beginning as having to be separated to meet the DOT requirement. So there's the local option sales tax and the farm to market portion. The farm to market portion puts us borrowed ahead more than I like to do. It doesn't meet the borrowing restriction, but that does put us a little over 2 years. So we'll be monitoring that closely here in the next 18 to 24 months, before we would put this project into development. We'd want to evaluate if that's something we really wanted to do. The S45 bridge is the other bridge in our HBP program. This is a bridge that we've done rehabs on in the past, but continues to be a problem. It sees a lot of truck traffic. So this would be on Highway S-45 south of Melter, Dallas. It's a short bridge on a paved route. There is potential for it in the near future to not meet the all systems permit. So that's one we're going to watch fairly closely. That's why it's kind of the next major bridge on a paved FM federal aid route. So then we get into the projects for FY 29 and 30. I'd be happy to discuss any of those. High level, there's some Jasper County county line bridges. There's a few local bridges that are in that next bridge bundle that I talked about, utilizing local funding. S-71 is the other major corridor the next major corridor that we would look at. This would be from T-15 out to the White Breast area or to the Lakeview subdivision. And then we have a couple other speculative grant projects that I discussed, the Attica shoulder paving, and then a number of local and farm to market projects that are kind of in the priority, but we really need to evaluate where we're going to be, in FY 30 with the uncertainties in funding. The major one being the T-17 bridge deck overlay. That is in FY 30 because that's where I can make the farm to market funding work. I try not to use as much. I try to use as little farm to market money as I can on bridges, but sometimes it's a necessity. Because of the borrowing ahead on our federal aid bridge money, I'm looking at farm to market on that bridge because it has good bones, good substructure. The deck is in very poor shape. We've patched it with our crews. Contractors have patched it. The deck itself needs rehabilitation. Overall, the bridge is in very good shape. So something needs to be done there, and this is the only place I can make it fit was in the farm to market funds. It will not be any sooner than FY 28 due to the future closures, current and future closures of Highway 14 and T-17 being the detour. So it would at the earliest be an FY 29 or 30 project, but 30 is where I can currently make the dollars fit. So over the next, in the 5-year program, you can see the average around $4 million in funding from all the various funding sources, with the exception of 2027, which includes that $15 million or roughly $15 million discretionary grant. I do have a couple other comments on farm to market balances. So in our farm to market 5-year program, so I track my program separately with the balances because the DOT doesn't project this far out. We are borrowed ahead in general 0 to 2 years. So basically what that means is 1 year would be $1.5 million negative because that's the allocation per year. Okay. So we're borrowed ahead somewhere between 0 and $3 million. If we're borrowed ahead 2 years, that's typically because we've let a project, then we maybe have a couple quarterly allocations to rebuild that, and we get back near 0. So what we're doing is basically trying to stay around 0 years borrowed ahead, 0 years accumulated. And when we let a project, we're borrowed ahead, and then we get back to 0 before we let another project. Just to keep things moving, the state and feds do not like to see balances, although we do have that ability to borrow ahead, to accumulate a balance. We have restrictions on borrowing and accumulating. However, the DOT does not encourage that accumulated balance because then legislators look at those dollars and say, well, you're not spending them. Why are we going to give you any more or change your allocation? So I try not to do that, try to stay as close to 0 as we can. So you'll see 0 to 2 years. It would be 2 years would be kind of the max that we're borrowed ahead in the next 5 years. On STBG, federal aid road projects, we're borrowed ahead 0 to 1. So we've let the Flagler Bridge. It came in under under budget. We've actually scaled back the 168th project slightly, so I think we're gonna come in about 20% less than what we had originally programmed and estimated for this 168th bridge. Let's hope that holds true here in November. And then, I'm sorry, I'm speaking on two funding sources. STBG, we only have one project programmed because we just let last week S45 pavement rehabilitation. That takes us into the red at 2.3 years borrowed ahead. So we'll quickly come out of that. But then we're not planning to let another federal aid road project until FY28, which is the S71 project that I mentioned. Now on highway bridge program funds, which is the federal aid bridge, that's where 168th we anticipate coming in slightly less. We're going to be borrowed ahead about 2 years, just over 2 years. So the Flagler Bridge coming in under budget, under the engineer's estimate definitely helped us to let another project. Otherwise, we'd probably be waiting a year, and then that would shove that S45 project out. So once we let S45, we'll still be borrowed ahead 3 years. And so, if you look out 8 to 10 years, we're probably only letting 2, 3, maybe 4 bridges at best using federal aid funding.
Tyler, I appreciate, I know this is a lot of work, and I know your experience, obviously, your longevity in knowing how to do this helps. But these are the types of situations that just not an ordinary person just can pick it up. And it takes a long time to understand and gauge, and knowing when you can borrow ahead and when you can't and all that. So thank you, because to an average person, this is very convoluted. It is. But I think when we look at where our trend is going, you're very fiscally responsible. We have to be, but it's maintenance. That's all. It seems like that's all we're getting done.
Yeah, I would say this program and the last one are less proactive than prior years. We had some good years there between 2017 and 2022, 23, where we were to be a little bit more proactive. So when we programmed projects, we were doing more rehabilitation than preservation and maintenance. But yes, you're right. This is more a maintenance and preservation. And even in that, we talked about a lot of different roads and bridges, but we're still well underfunded to meet the needs. There's roughly $25 million of unfunded road segments in this 5-year program on major corridors.
So I think that we as a board need to consider when, we want the projects done, such as Mile Long Bridge, right? Those things, those need to be done, but that also puts more wear and tear on our secondary roads too. So those are things that we have to be mindful that, you think, oh, maybe this road would last a little longer, but when you now making it a primary route, you've got a lot more wear and tear. When the legislation is over, and we kind of know what the property tax bill is going to look like, Tyler, I think it's important that you present to us as much as you can, at that time, what we're looking at. In the past, I know you've given us some projections and what your fund balance is looking like. And I think we as a board need to start wrapping our head around how we're going to help continue to fund roads.
And I was actually going to suggest that as well, that we have a more robust discussion about the outlook beyond 5 years, because we're dialing back from the 3 and 4 inch overlays to the minimums, 2-inch overlays to make some of these things work, because we have to do something. And we're running a cost analysis, so cost benefit, life cycle cost analysis. So do we do the micro surfacing that's going to cost us $1 million on 6 miles, or do we bite the bullet and do we do 4 million of asphalt overlay? What's the longevity of each, and what's the life cycle cost analysis, projecting that out, so we know what that is on our roads. on our major corridors. You know, we can look at those numbers. It's not improving anything else.
Correct.
It's only looking at our major farm to market federal aid corridors. The rest of it, with the exception of a couple here in the 5-year program, we have no plans for in the immediate future.
So,
And,
yeah,
and that's not new.
no, it's
I mean-
not new. It's just,
I don't want this to sound doom and gloom.
Nope.
It's,
but we do need to be thinking of, you know, it's tax dollars. There's only so much tax dollars. People do, you know, we know that the state has been hearing about what people's property taxes are. And I'm not gonna get on a soapbox. That's not what I'm here for. I'm just saying, we gotta try to see what we can do, but then we need to do our due diligence as supervisors and prioritize. You know, when you
Yeah.
think about, you know, our funding, what we have, how we're going to be able to continue to maintain. Cause I can guarantee you, when you ask somebody and they wanna be able to drive to their job and make sure that their road is safe. So,
yeah, so
Mhm.
I completely agree. There needs to be a more robust discussion
Yeah.
about the future, which I'm more than willing to have. Actually, we've talked about it a few years ago, this road sustainability thing,
Correct.
discussion we were having. And what hasn't been mentioned here today is all the other projects from other jurisdictions that are looming out there that I'm not even considering. With the city of Pella, city of Knoxville, city of
the
Pleasantville, city of
requests, correct?
Melton.
Yeah.
You know,
We get
there are
requests,
things
yeah.
looming out there. And we're, you know, no new construction is being considered.
So, yeah, legislation get done, you kind of have an understanding. I know sometimes that takes time when legislation that changes, especially when it comes to property tax bills and how that's going to affect you, the rest of us. But yes, I would prefer is, you know, after July 1st, you know, somewhere in there between that and fall, that you could present to us as a board what you're kind of looking at and what projections, way above budget time. How's that? That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I'll basically send you my notes today that I did not cover nearly even half of, that have some of that information, just to give you an idea. I'll just send this to you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, board, Jim? You guys don't have any further questions? So I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2025-39.
I move we approve resolution 2025-39.
And I'll support that.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Mueller.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Item number 17, Marion County IT. This is the printer contract. And I will allow Drew. And I'm sure.
Aren't you glad you were last on the agenda?
Always.
Thank you for your patience, Drew.
Yes. So pretty much, after a long process, getting proposals from different companies, we kind of land with Marco. Pretty much Jeff from Civil, Nicole and I kind of started this process when I first started, as we saw a lot of overages and stuff like that from MMIT and all that. So I was kind of looking further into that, trying to figure out a way to save county a little bit more money copier wise. So I know I'd had a few proposals from Access Systems, another one from MMIT, Copy Systems, and the last one was Marco, of course. And Marco actually stood out the most because of their service. They come on site with vehicles stocked with common parts. So no matter what, their copier, if it's down, it's going to be up and running unless it's one of those uncommon parts that they're going to have to order. Other piece was no overages. So it's pretty much unlimited prints in a way, but if Marco sees a lot of printing that's a little over about, they'll probably adjust the dollar sign a little bit. But other than that, I'll be planning on doing 5-year lease. And I want to move the billing to Department 99.
Okay.
So it's just one lump sum. Public health will have to be separate because she gets to charge her stuff to grants and stuff like that. So I'll have to divvy stuff out and stuff like that. We do have, I know there's Otter on his, will have a special module so you can print from the AS400. So that still is there. I know you're,
It would need to be anybody that's connected to the board,
yep.
all
Yeah.
offices.
So, and I think, given the sheet to Paul, which I have him here, for any questions from the board. The only one that actually has that module was yours, apparently, so.
All I know is that treasurer, recorder, assessor, auditor, or secondary roads has to be able to print from the 400.
Yep, so. But other than that, it's just, I come to the board with a recommendation of going with Marco and getting the billing over to Department 99.
I see that we could be having an annual savings of $11,000 if we went with Marco, right? That
Yep,
is okay.
yep.
If we were to do this, I do know the departments probably already have it budgeted into their budget. I would ask that you not spend that money, because if we were to allocate it coming out of Department 99, beginning of the first of the year, then just leave it in your budget, as you know, that way it would be neutral there. Jim, I know that you probably worked being the liaison with Drew. You have any thoughts?
I would just like to compliment Drew on managing this whole process and having multiple respondents coming back for that. I think the end result has been very, very positive. Marco appears to fit the bill on in every situation, and I would recommend we adopt the changes that Drew is recommending.
Okay, awesome. I did, my understanding, Marco has come highly recommended.
Yep.
Yep. So,
At least from us, I know the department heads were fine with pretty much any decision we make that's, saving the county money wise. So
The one thing I do want to point out to everybody is we're going to be saving $11,000 a year, and we're going to be getting brand new equipment. So rather than what we're paying today just to maintain our old stuff, we're actually going to get new stuff and have no click charges or anything on top of it. So very, very well done, Drew.
thank you.
awesome.
Oh,
Nope.
yeah.
Great. No,
Oh,
I
great.
appreciate your due diligence on this, Drew. I don't have an issue with it. So with that, I'll entertain a motion for Marion County Copper Printer contract for 5 years. Is that correct?
Yep,
With
yep.
Marco.
So moved.
I'll support.
Mueller,
Hi.
Connor,
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
Thanks again, Drew.
All right, thank you guys.
Item number 18.
Yay.
Updates. I know it's been a long meeting. I think you guys, thank you for your patience. Mr. Mueller, do you have any updates?
I have no updates at this time.
All right, Mr. McCombs.
I have a HERDA meeting Thursday. And Friday, I will be going to my grandson's Iowa Law Enforcement Academy graduation.
So congratulations to him. That's wonderful. I have Board of Health tonight. Have a meeting with Habitat for Humanity. They're having kind of a show and tell type situation. Doing that tomorrow. Also plan to go to the Capitol tomorrow. And I also would like to remind the Board of Supervisors, it is becoming the end of the year, fiscal year. So performance evaluations for those that you have done, your appointed liaison. I would suggest that you start looking at that, and Lisa has the performance evaluation sheet that we use. And if you could start those, and those would then be turned into Lisa. So that, I don't have anything else, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I'll support.
McCombs,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Connor.
Aye. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, everyone.